Imagine a national hero, celebrated, revered, standing shoulder to shoulder with a saint. Then imagine that same hero confessing to unthinkable horrors. This is the dark truth behind France's legendary knight, Gilles de Rais. From savior to a name whispered in fear, his transformation remains one of history's most chilling puzzles. How does a man who fought beside Joan of Arc, a symbol of courage and devotion, become something else entirely, a figure synonymous with monstrous evil? We're about to peel back the layers of history to understand the forces, the decisions, and perhaps the madness that led to the fall of a hero and the rise of a nightmare. Get ready to confront a story that makes us question everything we think we know about good and evil, and the terrifying darkness that can lurk within the most unexpected places. Before he became a shadow in history, Gilles de Rais was bathed in the glorious light of triumph. Born into one of France's wealthiest and most powerful families in 1405, he inherited a fortune that could buy kingdoms, a lineage stretching back to emperors, and castles scattered across the French countryside. From a young age, he was groomed for greatness. He learned the arts of chivalry, warfare, and leadership. But it wasn't just his birthright that propelled him to fame. It was his undeniable skill on the battlefield. The 100 Years' War was tearing France apart, and into this chaos stepped a young woman named Joan of Arc, claiming divine guidance. Gilles de Rais, barely out of his teens, saw something in her. He wasn't just a follower. He became her most trusted companion, her most loyal general. He fought valiantly by her side, riding into battle under her banner, his shining armor a beacon of hope. Picture him there, leading charges, his sword flashing, inspiring his men to impossible victories. He was instrumental in relieving the siege of Orléans, a turning point in the war, and stood proudly when Charles VII was crowned King of France in Reims. For his unwavering loyalty and fierce bravery, he was made a Marshal of France, one of the highest military honors possible. He was a national icon, celebrated in songs and stories, loved by the people, and respected by kings. He was seen as the very embodiment of chivalry, a true knight, a hero who had helped save France. His wealth was legendary, his power immense. He owned more than 100 castles, manors, and fortified towns. His estates spanned vast regions, and his influence was felt at the highest levels of the French court. He could afford anything, achieve anything, and seemingly get away with anything. At this point, the world was his oyster, a glittering treasure awaiting his command. Yet even as he stood at the pinnacle of glory, subtle cracks began to form, almost imperceptibly, hinting at the unstable foundations beneath the gilded facade. Then, the unthinkable happened. Joan of Arc was captured, betrayed, and burned at the stake. This event, devastating for France, seemed to shatter something within Gilles de Rais. The war, the cause, the purpose that had defined his life was suddenly gone. The adrenaline, the camaraderie, the clear-cut good and evil of the battlefield vanished. What was left was a man with immense wealth, power, and a gaping void where his purpose used to be. He retreated to his lavish estates, no longer seeking glory on the battlefield, but something else entirely within the confines of his opulent castles. The tales from this period are where the light begins to dim and shadows lengthen. His extravagant lifestyle, always a point of note, spiraled out of control. He spent his fortune like water, staging elaborate plays, commissioning magnificent churches, and maintaining an enormous retinue of servants and soldiers. But this wasn't mere opulence. It felt like a desperate attempt to fill the emptiness. Whispers began to circulate, at first quietly, then growing louder, like a chilling wind through empty halls. It started with rumors of bizarre rituals. People spoke of him dabbling in alchemy, obsessed with turning base metals into gold, not for wealth but for some unknown darker purpose. He sought out sorcerers and alchemists, men who promised to reveal ancient secrets, to summon spirits, to grant him forbidden knowledge and power. His quest for gold quickly morphed into a more sinister pursuit, a desire to converse with demons, to bargain for the return of his former glory, or perhaps for even darker desires to be fulfilled. Then came the true horror. children began to disappear from the villages surrounding his many castles. Young boys, often lured away with promises of sweets or coins, simply vanished. At first, people explained it away. Children wander off, they run away. But the numbers grew, and the disappearances clustered around de Rais's properties. A cold dread settled over the community. Mothers clutched their children tighter. Fathers spoke in hushed tones, their eyes darting towards the looming castle walls. The air grew thick with unease. Farmers swore they heard strange cries emanating from the castle at night, not the shouts of revelry, but something far more disturbing. Some spoke of grotesque figures seen scurrying through the woods, or of unsettling sounds drifting on the wind, a distant, disembodied wail, the metallic click of a heavy lock echoing in the stillness. It was a palpable fear, a creeping terror that stole sleep and infected every corner of their lives. De Rais, once the protector, became the terror. He would travel from castle to castle bringing his terrifying retinue with him, and wherever he went, children vanished. The local authorities, intimidated by his immense power and influence, often turned a blind eye or were too afraid to investigate too closely. Who would dare challenge a Marshal of France, a man whose family history was intertwined with the very fabric of the kingdom? But the weight of disappearances, the constant dread, could not be ignored forever. The missing children, the unsettling whispers, the very fabric of the local communities tearing apart, it all pointed to one terrible conclusion. The rumors solidified into accusations, fueled by the growing body of evidence, however fragmented. A chilling picture began to emerge from the testimonies of those brave enough to speak, of servants who saw glimpses, of villagers who heard cries, of parents who lost their beloved sons. This wasn't merely a tale of a hero gone bad. It was a slow, agonizing descent into unimaginable depravity, turning the shining knight into a monster lurking in the shadows of his own making. The curtain finally fell on Gilles de Rais in 1440. The Bishop of Nantes, Jean de Malestroit, a man less easily intimidated than local officials, launched a full ecclesiastical and civil investigation. The net tightened around a once untouchable lord. It was a dramatic showdown, a clash between the power of a mighty noble and the nascent forces of justice. What unfolded during the trial was a horror beyond anything the public could have imagined. Witness after witness bravely stepped forward, often at great personal risk, to recount their chilling experiences. Servants spoke of being ordered to dispose of bodies, of seeing Gilles de Rais with missing children, of the horrifying noises they heard from locked rooms. The testimony was damning, painting a picture of systematic and premeditated evil. The bishop, along with officials from the Duke of Brittany and even the King of France, heard tales that would curdle the blood. Under intense questioning, and facing the combined weight of ecclesiastical and civil charges, Gilles de Rais himself finally broke. He confessed. Not just to one or two isolated acts, but to the ritualistic torture, sexual abuse, and murder of scores of young boys. The exact number remains debated, but estimates range from 40 to well over 200 victims. He described his methods with a chilling frankness, detailing how he would often watch the children die, deriving a perverse satisfaction from their suffering. He admitted to using their bodies in his dark magic rituals, believing that their screams and their blood would help him summon demons and gain forbidden knowledge. His confession sent shockwaves across France and beyond. The hero, the marshal, the companion of Joan of Arc, was revealed to be a predator of the most horrific kind. It was an unfathomable betrayal of everything he once stood for, a stain on the very concept of chivalry. The pronouncement of guilt was swift. He was condemned to death by both the ecclesiastical and civil courts. The legacy of his crimes was so profound that they coined a new term, a Gilles de Rais, to describe a perpetrator of such unspeakable acts against children. The sheer scale and systematic nature of his crimes, coupled with his high status, made his case unprecedented in its day. On October 26, 1440, Gilles de Rais was hanged and then burned at the stake in Nantes. Unlike Joan of Arc's execution, which ignited outrage and later led to her sainthood, de Rais's death was met with a grim sense of justice. It was a final horrifying end to a life that had begun with such promise and descended into such profound darkness. The story of Gilles de Rais leaves us with haunting questions. How could such a respected figure fall so far? Was it the trauma of war, the loss of Joan, the immense unchecked power, or an inherent darkness finally unleashed? His tale forces us to confront the unsettling truth that evil doesn't always wear a monstrous face. Sometimes it hides behind a hero's shield, reminding us of the thin veil between glory and depravity. It's a chilling historical mystery, a stark reminder that the human heart, even the most celebrated one, can hold an abyss. Subscribe to Foxhole History,